Camilla Parker, BS, has reportedly had a very trying few weeks, and things are just going to get worse. A story that, to be honest, seems to have been developing for 30 years is currently taking shape inside Buckingham Palace. Additionally, Princess Anne and Prince William, two of the most unlikely people to collaborate, are involved. And the target, the woman who, for decades before becoming Queen Consort, sat behind King Charles at all formal gatherings. People close to the palace claim that role is not as secure as Camilla would like the world to believe. Since everyone in the palace was paying attention to a particular incident, let's start with what actually sparked this. Insiders claim that about 3 weeks before this story went viral, a senior palace staffer made a very strange phone call. Not to the media, not to a government minister, and not to any of the typical people you contact when managing a royal communication issue, but to a lawyer acting on Princess Anne's behalf. About Camilla, the call lasted less than 5 minutes. Short, precise, and according to sources, the kind of conversation that takes place when someone has already made up their mind and just wants to confirm that the path is clear. That call reportedly marked the start of something far more important. For over 70 years, Anne has been a member of this family. She witnessed the entire event in real time. The panorama interview, the divorce, the adulterous affairs, and Diana's death. She managed her feelings about it in a secret and professional manner, just like she handles everything else. The obvious question is, why now? Why 2026? After hiding this for 30 years, why is Anne now seemingly taking action? Sources claim that there are two halves to the solution, and you need both to understand the problem completely. The first portion is William. William's position inside this business has changed significantly in the last 18 months. He isn't just waiting in the wings anymore. He is making real financial decisions with real consequences. The Duchy of Cornwall is the ideal location to view it. First, £2 billion in assets, including land and real estate. Everything was directly under William's authority. Consent from Charles or anyone else is not required, nor is consultation. The clearest public sign of William's intention to use that authority was when he removed Annabel Elliot from the duchy's payroll. That's Camilla's younger sister, an interior designer who worked for Charles on several duchy homes for more than 20 years. Depending on the job, she made between £19,000 and £82,000 annually. As soon as William took over the duchy upon Queen Elizabeth's death, Annabel's name vanished from the financial records. No public dispute, no remark, just gone. Furthermore, she was not replaced by any neutral hiring. William brought in his own people, friends from his social circle, his children's godparents, and others who were just interested in him. Royal observers saw it right away and noted that it was causing quite a stir inside the palace. That decision sent a message that didn't need to be interpreted. Anne witnessed that. According to sources, she granted her whole approval. The choice reportedly set off a long overdue argument between Anne and William, who had reached the same conclusion at roughly the same time for very different but deeply emotional reasons. I've had enough waiting. The second part of the answer is Diana. On August 31, 2027, Diana died in that tunnel in Paris 30 years ago. It has been 30 years since William, then 15, was made to walk through the streets of London in front of everyone while carrying his mother's coffin. He has been in the public eye for almost 30 years, yet he has never once connected his opinions about Camilla to his feelings about his mother's struggles. He is a husband, a father of 3, and 43 years of age. He never had to. His actions have been sending that message for years. Sources claim that at some time throughout the past few months, Anne made the decision that she was done, stopped allowing personal beliefs to be subordinated to institutional loyalty. I'm sick of seeing Camilla occupy real and symbolic spaces that, based on reports, Anne believes belong to Diana's legacy rather than the woman who caused her years of suffering. After seeing Diana up close during those years and carrying her own version of that pain, it is reported that Anne decided it was time to take action. When she acted, she also had access to something that is today genuinely upsetting some people at Buckingham Palace. A room in Windsor Castle is called the Royal Archives. No guests, no documentary teams, and no public access. It contains the British royal family's unvarnished, unfiltered, and private history. Letters, diaries, and internal correspondence were written records of what was actually happening within the institution during the most turbulent decades of the 20th century, including the years when Charles and Diana's marriage was obviously and fatally crumbling. According to sources, Princess Anne has been examining these documents because she has access to them in a way that very few people outside of her immediate family do. It is worthwhile to consider what exactly is in those archives from the 1980s and 1990s that certain people allegedly do not want to be made public at this time. Thus, the audience is generally aware of the general concept. The Camillagate tapes in 1993, Diana's Panorama interview in 1995, her divorce in 1996, Charles's TV confession in 1994, and her death in 1997. All of that has been documented, examined, and discussed over the course of 30 years of books and documentaries. The sources found in those archives show more than generalizations. It's the specific, confidential, contemporaneous written record of who knew what, when they knew it, who enabled it, and how. The internal institutional component of a situation that the public record only partially captures. Diana's concerns were recognized and taken care of. How the organization handled a scenario in which one of its members was suffering in a way that was widely known and documented. According to sources who are aware of Anne's alleged archive investigation, the documents tell a story of institutional failure that goes much beyond what has ever been made public. Furthermore, sources state that Anne believes the story should be part of the entire historical record rather than being softened or shaped by those who would for it to be forgotten. Camilla is one of those people. A complete and accurate historical narrative of the Wales marriage is unpleasant for the current Queen consort, and it never was. The difference now is that the person allegedly asking whether that record should be kept confidential has the power, access, and, to be honest, the motivation to act. Sources claim that Anne's position is unambiguous. The historical record of Diana's most traumatic era should be complete and unchanged, and the woman who today sits next to the monarch at all formal functions has no right to influence how that period is remembered. It's rumored that Anne keeps arriving there. Sources claim that Camilla will be impacted by that decision in ways that have nothing to do with money or real estate. At this point, the situation becomes much more complicated, so let's talk about what William is doing concurrently. The Duchy of Cornwall earned over £30 million in a single year in 2025. Tenant farms, holiday houses, the Isles of Scilly, Dartmoor land rights, and commercial assets were accumulated over nearly 700 years of royal estate management. Every pound of it was entirely within William's authority. Sources claim that he has been using that control so precisely that many people in Camilla's inner circle are only now starting to notice it. Annabel Elliott's departure was the first move, which was significant enough on its own, but insiders claim that what followed went far further. Camilla had access to Crown events and was in close proximity to significant royal engagements, and invitations that had previously been extended to members of her wider circle were covertly withdrawn. Appearances where Parker Bowles' family members were expected to be, and that was suddenly rescheduled. The same slow, deliberate, and utterly indisputable denial of access that characterized the Elliott scenario applied to every link between Camilla's family and the organization William is in charge of. Nothing that would make a headline on its own. Everything comes together to form something that is obvious when you stand back and look at the big picture. There's also the Diana component of William's financial behavior, which some describe as completely intentional. William has been covertly transferring certain Duchy-affiliated philanthropic cash to organizations that Diana first backed. Diana personally advocated for mental health, homelessness, and HIV awareness throughout her life. Her advocacy was first resisted by the establishment because they were seen as being too direct and politically charged for a senior royal to deal with. In any case, Diana paid an institutional price for touching them. One is currently owned by her son, $2 billion in assets, and makes $30 million annually. According to insiders, he is allocating some of that money to the same places his mother mentioned when the group she belonged to was actively attempting to control her. Sources claim that Anne has said something in private that you would simply characterize as satisfaction in a less disciplined person. Because what Anne is allegedly doing with the archives and William is allegedly doing with the duchy is what insiders describe as a two-front operation. The two members of this family with the most personal motives are allegedly concurrently shaping money and history, the past and the future, and Camilla is there in the middle of it. Her ceremonial position is also being affected, and this part of the story deserves close examination because it is so subtle that it is easy to miss unless you are keeping an eye on it. Camilla made a statement on May 6, 2023, when she entered Westminster Abbey wearing the Girls of Great Britain and Ireland tiara, which had been on British banknotes for decades and was Queen Elizabeth's favorite. A purposeful sign that Camilla had arrived at her destination, that she was perfectly entitled to her job, that the recuperation was complete. For her supporters, it was a moment of victory. According to sources, it was the start of a clock for other people inside the palace, because everything Camilla's coronation moment represents will be practically erased when that tiara finally sits on Catherine's head as Queen Consort. Sources claim that Anne and William are both well aware of this and aren't just holding out hope, because in royal life, symbols are not ornaments, they are powerful. The public and the institution are informed about who is significant, who belongs, and whose legacy endures through the crown's unique artifacts, customs, and patronages. Over the past 20 years, Camilla has accumulated those symbols. She is more than just Charles's wife. Royal patronages, charitable ties, and ceremonial duties give her role substance and legitimacy. Sources claim that accumulation is allegedly being halted. The hundreds of royal patronages that Queen Elizabeth held at the time of her death have been redistributed by working royals since 2022. Others claim that Anne may have subtly impacted that redistribution by taking part in certain patronage decisions. Numerous high-profile patronages that were being positioned for Camilla were reportedly rerouted through a covert reallocation that reflected priorities rather than logistics, rather than any publicly announced decision. Charles granted William and Catherine the authority to issue royal warrants in 2025, enabling them to openly support businesses and organizations on behalf of the crown. Monarchs have historically taken great care to protect this right. By giving it to William and Kate, the crown was openly indicating that it was deliberately shifting its symbolic weight from the current reign and everything associated with it, including Camilla, to William and Catherine, the next generation. The decisions currently being made about the documentation of Charles III's reign, including official photographs, historical exhibits, and crown documentary projects, are said to represent William and Anne's goals for how this era should be remembered. Who is quietly lessened, who becomes peripheral, and who becomes prominent in the visual record. Royal history is shaped by what is kept and how it is preserved. The visual record of a reign becomes its historical record, which becomes its legacy. According to sources, Camilla's legacy is currently being shaped by people who have very strong opinions about what it should contain. Her emotional reaction to the weight of all these deeds is also described by some as the reaction of someone witnessing the painstaking and irreparable destruction of their own carefully constructed image. Not in one big moment, but in 100 little ones. On their own, each is indisputable, but when combined, they are catastrophic. Then there is her personal situation, which has a story of its own. Camilla sold Ray Mill House. No news release, no lifestyle magazine article, no well-planned announcement. Only one house disappeared from her portfolio after it was put up for sale. The Wiltshire retreat she had owned since before she married Charles, the garden she had described as the best therapy in the world, and the place she publicly called her own, escape gone. More information about Camilla's current mental health is reportedly revealed by her sale than by anything she has said in public in months. People don't just exchange their private havens. They do not relinquish the one place that is entirely theirs and comes before anything else, unless something has drastically altered their understanding of their own fate. Currently, Camilla frequently visits several royal residences, including Sandringham, Balmoral, Buckingham Palace, and Clarence House, the whole infrastructure of a reigning queen consort with access to the world's most significant private royal domains. That picture is completely changed after Charles dies. Sandringham gives his pass to William. Balmoral is given to William. Buckingham Palace serves as William and Catherine's major official residence. Camilla is currently only permitted to enter the houses upon William's invitation. She is expected to inherit Clarence House, which is projected to be worth £72 million, and Highgrove, which is estimated to be worth £39 million. Significant assets by any reasonable measure, yet completely inadequate to take over her current position. She would go from being queen consort with the full weight of the monarchy behind her to being a private individual with the title of Queen Dowager, living in 2 homes at the whim of a man who had grown up seeing her abuse his mother. Sources claim that Camilla has a solid grasp of mathematics. The familial dimension exacerbates everything. Annabel Elliot is no longer employed by the duchy. Tom Parker Bowles is alleged to have lost access to royal places following the Balmoral incident. The Parker Bowles family's attendance at crown events is dwindling. Camilla spent 20 years building a network of contacts and access for her siblings and kids within the company she married into. Sources claim that William is dissecting it piece by piece with a thoroughness and patience that suggests a genuine long-term goal rather than a passing irritation. Furthermore, Camilla has become a liability because she is genuinely unable to find a way out of the Sarah Ferguson situation. Ferguson's name appears in the Epstein files of the U.S. Department of Justice. Although there is no evidence that she committed any crimes, the relationship is real and well established. Additionally, reports claim that William has fully informed Camilla of his position about Andrew's violations and the ongoing institutional repercussions. Deal with the consequences of the connection or formally and completely cut ties with Ferguson. Camilla hasn't fully complied. She feels that ending a relationship that predates her entire regal life is both fundamentally unfair and humanly impossible. William thinks Camilla's steadfast loyalty to Ferguson is evidence of the exact kind of bad judgment that justifies his concerns about her future appropriateness as the organization's representative. According to sources, Camilla is losing power in the palace every week as a result of the protracted struggle. Charles is sitting in the center of it all, so this is when the story truly gets complicated. Charles's position in this situation is also one of the more challenging factors to take into account. In all honesty, when he contacted Anne in February of this year, it was reportedly one of the most difficult conversations between the 2 siblings in decades. Not angry, not a fee, silent and painful. The lament of a man who understands exactly what his sister is doing and why, therefore, he is unable to truly argue against her acts. By the end of the 40-minute call, nothing had been resolved. Just that one item of information can tell you a lot about Charles' actual stance. He is 76 years old. He was diagnosed with cancer in February 2024. Treatment was ongoing in 2024 and 2025, albeit the exact type has never been disclosed. He has been really disciplined in doing his public duties during that time. But discipline is not the same as power, and maintaining appearances is not the same as being able to fight on multiple fronts at once. Sources claim that during the past 18 months, he has become far less enthusiastic about managing complex internal family relationships. In addition, protecting Camilla from what William and Anne are allegedly doing requires the very kind of ongoing, recurrent, conflict-absorbing involvement for which he is currently least equipped. To safeguard Camilla, William would need to be instructed to restore access and rights to those he had deliberately taken away. William wouldn't comply, and Charles knows that. It would include telling Anne to stop doing whatever she is allegedly doing with the archives. Charles knows full well that Anne wouldn't comply. He would have to publicly reject both his sister and his successor at the same time in order to defend the woman who millions of people still identify with the suffering of his first wife. Charles simply cannot afford the role's political and personal repercussions. Insiders claim that he is fully aware of that. Nonetheless, some describe this part of Charles's situation as the most excruciating of all. He knows why William and Anne are feeling the way they are, because he was present and the cause of everything. The affair, which Diana described as causing her immense personal damage, was carried out by him. He is the reason grief exists. How can you argue against it when you are the reason behind your son's grief over his mother? How do you convince your sister that maintaining your wife's standing is more significant than honoring the sister-in-law who was directly harmed by your own choices? Sources claim that Charles is unable to deliver those points with true conviction since he does not fully accept any of them. Sources describe what Charles supposedly said to a senior assistant during this period as subtly revealing. He was not angry at William. He didn't express his frustration to Anne. According to reports, he stated he understood. The comprehension of a man who is aware that those working against his wife are doing so for reasons he invented and who is unable to provide an explanation. So what does all of this really mean? Because there is a retaliation-like version of this story. William and Anne systematically demolish all Camilla built as payback for what Camilla did to Diana. Furthermore, there is another type that seems to be more deliberate and persistent than retaliation. Sources claim that the second version is more accurate. As a straightforward form of revenge, Camilla would be publicly humiliated and deprived of everything in one spectacular moment. It is said that William and Anne did not build that. Sources describe something that is more persistent, patient, and ultimately more important. Instead of focusing on Diana's romanticized image, think about the actual significance of her deeds. She worked with people who had AIDS when the disease was still considered a shame. She walked over active minefields in Angola to make a political statement against the use of weapons that kill civilians. She sat with homeless people, looked them in the eye, and treated them like whole human beings, something that senior royals were just not supposed to do. She achieved all of this in defiance of an establishment that viewed her emotional openness as hazardous and her popularity as erratic. She was right in every aspect. The company made a mistake. William's knowledge of this comes not from historical studies, but from personal experience. He witnessed his mother being punished by the institution for being right. He is now in charge of the company. Sources claim that William's modernizing goals go beyond superior management. Diana's institutional expression is what it is. The emotional intelligence was deemed inappropriate. She was made aware of the dangers associated with public responsibility. She was told that the genuine intimate relationship was beneath the dignity of a senior royal. All of this is allegedly being incorporated into the kingdom that William is constructing. Anne contributes in parallel. Decades of quiet, truly successful work constitute a live argument against performative royalty. Diana spent every penny to present the same argument. Insiders claim that Camilla is painstakingly and slowly learning the following. She prevailed in the battle. She obtained Charles. She won the championship. She was crowned, given the tiara, and seated next to the monarch. But the conflict never centered on Charles. It was about Diana, her values, and whether the organization Diana tried to change would eventually be worth the expense she invested. William and Anne are reportedly currently building that institution, not to get even. For Diana, Camilla has no strategy to deal with that. There is no disputing a legacy. It is not possible to litigate grief. It is impossible to outsmart a son who saw his mother die and spent 28 years quietly and carefully considering what to do about it. Diana, was never able to see this monarchy's potential. She was given a family that barely waved its flag, a Paris tunnel, and 2 sons without mothers. But there are reports that something is happening in that palace right now that she couldn't see. All Camilla had built was changed into something Diana would have recognized as her own by her son and her sister-in-law, who moved silently and forever together. Not revenge. Better than taking revenge. Heritage. More than any property dispute, peril decision, or symbolic tiara, it is reportedly Camilla's harshest reality in decades. The fight over Diana's legacy is far from done, regardless of how true these stories are. Decisions made today could have a lasting impact on the crown as William's power grows and the monarchy transitions to a new generation. The largest changes might still be taking place behind closed doors if palace insiders are correct. What are your thoughts? Is William preserving Diana's legacy, or is there more to this tale than first appears? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and enable alerts for more information about the royal family and exclusive palace news.